Hey everyone, it's Will, GamerDad, with another video for you. So first off, I'd like to give a shout out to one of my YouTube members, Isaiah. Thanks for your support! Now in today's video, we do have the newest rendition of the Battle Simulator, aka Boss Rush, and so this is the normal version, normal difficulty, and so I combined all four stages into this video. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. And I also do have a Patreon account for those who want to support me this way. So I do find that the vast majority of these normal difficulty ones are mostly to experiment with teams you already are familiar with, or in some cases use units you've never used before as long as it fits the criteria. And in this case, the first battle is going to require Shade. We already know who you're going to be bringing in. Of course, you're going to be bringing Ify and Yakumo. The duel themselves is probably enough. Even Ify by herself, with any sort of bots, Rainbow Sisters and Knights, probably can tank the hit for her, and she can do the main DPS if you want. In this case, the only other requirement is that you do need to bring Clark. The final stage does have 1 HP stopper, and so you can't clear it in one go unless you have a full team of Shade units. Of course, you can bring any number of Shade units. You don't have to just bring 2. There's plenty of them out there. Tuva, other main DPS out there. And Winefika, of course, is our newest Shade unit. Really isn't much of an issue. And of course, you do take a little bit of a hit there. As a result, though, remember that since Blood Contract has been consumed from Yakumo, he's now not in lunatic state. Look, the damage is quite a bit lower, and so remember that you have to read the description of the moves to make sure you know how to use the character properly. In the case of Yakumo, he does have to be in lunatic state in order to do massive amount of guaranteed critical and 5 hits with deletion. Also, for the first 3 stages of this fights, I forgot to even equip any sidekicks, and so you won't see any sidekicks until the very last fight, and I'll note which 2 I did bring to the fight. So that's pretty easy. Again, difficulty is not in the 10 or 11 or 12 range, only really 4, 5, 6, and 7. Grasta loadout will be shown after each fight, although you should know by now the kind of standard Grasta setup I do bring for each and every one of these fights. I didn't really modify any of my Grasta, and to be fair, I hardly brought any Grasta carriers, because realistically, at these low levels, especially for a mature account like myself, the shared Grasta or even 3 pain poison Grasta is more than enough. Remember that Ify can apply pain and poison with Rosa Liliac, and so if you have a steady source of pain setting Grasta or just a move that does pain, you'll probably do more than enough damage. In this case, for the second fight, we do need Crystal, and so we can bring our favorites out here, AS Mysteria, Eva, and Alma. If you have AS Alma for tanking, I'm sure you can use that, being that this is one of the newest. And of course, ES Dilly is coming sometime later on this evening, in which case you can use that if you want. So in this case, all we have to do is use Preemptive Horai Jewel to give everyone mental focus. Keep in mind that Alma does have her main Crystal DPS as a magical move that does barrier pierce, by the way, as long as you have that active. Also remember that she has not even entered trance state, which is her own lunatic. That increases her damage by a significant margin. However, at the lower levels, probably don't need to really worry about it. At the higher levels or the higher difficulties, you probably will have to set zone and do debuffing. In this case, note that the boss does have some status effects at 1 HP stopper. I really should have had Tetra to remove those, or have gear like Moon Realm or other type of newer gear in order to reduce the RNG required to watch out for pain and poison. There are also moves that can prevent status effects as well. Some of the newer units can do that. So, I mean, if you're really relying on, in this case, again, clearing within 8 turns should be more than capable. If you happen to be one of those few who really want to do free-to-play strategies, of course, the 8 turns may be a little bit more difficult, but certainly not at this level. In terms of free strategies, you can use crystal moves that are equipped by, for example, the Complex Stream units. They can equip those crystal element specialized moves, or even our favorite Starkey as a free dual debuffer that can do mild crystal DPS. So those are some options for for you as a free strategy. In this case, I'm sure you want to really see kind of some of the team comps I think of. I don't always do videos about kind of explaining how I choose different team comps. In this case, the first 3 stages are fairly straightforward. Each one focuses on one type of element, and these are going to be the lunar ones because the Western mythos or the sort of song of sword and so on and so forth, each focuses on shade, crystal, and thunder respectively. And so if you have an elemental team of each for the first 3 stages, you shouldn't have any difficulty at all, and I would argue that thunder or shade should be the easiest one of the 3 if you have the right team. If you have Orlea in the front line like here, or Orlea is, you give everyone whole ground right off the bat. And also remember, if you are short on units that are specific to that element, don't forget that Coco, AS Nakoko, and RCF do switch Kaleido to the element in play, and so you can definitely play around with those as your fill-in units. AS Nakoko is here, of course, also to apply up to a 50% dual triple debuff, as well as boost everyone by 75%, at least for guiding light characters, plus so on and so forth, stats wise. In the case of our DPS, I don't have a Boro. I don't know if you need a Boro. I didn't even use ESMU. I decided to use our favorite main character, that is Thunder Camouflage. Not really ultra powerful, but I mean, hey, cool to bring nonetheless. And I already had him spec'd out for wandering around the overworld while I was doing the main story, by which I still haven't finished the last chapter. Kind of just honestly been a little bit lazy in that sense. And like I said, real life is in the way a little bit as well. Now, this final boss in this stage does have 3 HP stoppers, very similar to the Shadow of Chaos, which is the end of the main story at chapter 84 or so. So you will trigger it, and at each HP point it will say something like, oh, the power shade, blah 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 blah. There's a line here, like for example, you can see it. Power Shadow God is out of control, and then the power of the Shadow God is settled or whatnot. So not too difficult per se. Again, remember, these are only the basic stages, but they also give you some insight as to the move set or the type of attacks you're expecting to encounter during the more extreme stages, of which I will have a video later on. I'm not sure if I'll finish all of them this evening depending on the difficulty, but certainly I'll try a couple of them. And if you don't have any bold pulses stored up like myself, I have quite a bit. You can do those, I believe it's every 8 hours you get one, for a total of 3 per day or something like that. So if you can't do them all right now, don't worry about it. If you're newer to the game and you find these extremely difficult, these are meant for, at least for end game strategies for the most part. Battle Simulator, aka Boss Rush, isn't even unlocked until some point in the main story. So if you're newer to the game and you're wondering, how do I access this? You have to finish certain part of the main story, and then there's actually a certain quest that involves the lab owner, which is called Sebastia. I can't remember the exact steps by which you do so. However, if you look up the AE wiki, it'll tell you exactly what you need to know in order to unlock these fights, after which you can unlock all of them as long as you've at least done the various chapters or the various storylines associated with these battle simulators. In this case, this one requires all chapter 10 of the Western mythos to be beaten, because otherwise you wouldn't have encountered these bosses. And the battle simulator essentially is a simulator that pits your team against some of the memories you fought in the past, which in this case are these various stages. Now, in this final stage, you do need all 3 lunar elements, so Shade, Thunder, and Crystal respectively. I think it's actually Shade first, then then Crystal, then Thunder. Just very similar to the previous 3 stages. And then there's a 4th stage that requires all 3 elements. Again, the good thing about this battle simulator versus previous battle simulators is that you don't have to only bring a party of 4. You gotta actually have Grasta carriers, and of which I do not have any. Clark, of course, by mine being 255, can actually carry quite a bit of staff Grasta. So if you want to power up your certain staff users on your team, you can certainly do so. Didn't bother speccing it out. Also note that in certain stages, you can use 2 of the 3 lunar elements. It's not like you're completely restricted to only 1 of the 3, at least in the normal version. I suspect in the extreme version, you'll probably have null, null, absorb, absorb, which will be no fun at all. Keep in mind that if you want to exploit resistances versus Weaknesses, you can definitely use Alter Xion as your magic zone setter and then bring an all magic team. Again, Alma is a magic user even though she's a bow carrier, so keep that in mind. Otherwise, just choose as you see fit. I did not bring Yakumo in this team because in the third stage, it does absorb Shade, and being that it absorbs the same amount of damage you do to it, I did not bring Yakumo because he does so many billions of damage, he would be counterproductive to the fight itself. Otherwise, again, remember that this is a repeat of the toughest bosses in each of the 3 previous stages. So remember that this one, the Shade God or Shadow God, has 3 HP stoppers. Play accordingly to that, and of course, Shade does not work on it. You're supposed to use, in this case, Thunder, and that's fine. You'll have to find a way to apply mental focus to your team. In this case, being that Efi, if you cast her Shade Setting Zone, and this is why Shade Zone is active, the Shade Setting Zone actually gives everyone mental focus, I think for 3 turns, and so you can do it that way. Each of the other characters can give themselves their own mental focus, but keep that in mind that you can do that with Efi. Also, remember that these are longer fights, and so, for example, the Lunatic's trance status from Alma has faded. Eva's Lunatic has also faded, and so if you really want to bring the most out of them, remember to plan accordingly. Reactivate their Lunatic if needed. If you want to hold back your AF and then use your AF to set up later on, you can do so as well. Again, I'm just mucking around, not really trying super seriously at this point, only because I really wanted to experiment, and clearly with my meager amount of experimentation using some pretty overpowered units, these aren't even SA units, and I do enjoy, like I said in previous videos, Battle Simulator is nice in that you can win without having a super whale account for the most part. It does require a lot more planning rather than, wow, I can't do 5 billion damage and so I've lost, aka Astral Archives. This is more of a survival and getting past the different stages. Teominas, which is this 4th stage, does have an HP stopper, and you can see that they have wings, of which each has various weaknesses and absorbs. So you're supposed to kill off various ones when all the wings are damaged. Then the body becomes vulnerable, and of course, like I said, you brought it down to 1/3. It'll regenerate all 3 wings, and then you will attack accordingly. So AoEs work really well. Obviously, Astral Drago can be used, but she's not really as powerful against more targets. Remember that her Astral Drago actually does less damage as you have more targets, so bear that in mind as well. And finally, Aether Alchema is a single target attack and not an AoE, so again, plan accordingly and make sure you know what you're bringing, what kind of team. You can see that the wings themselves are at times resistant and guarded only, and so as long as it's not absorbing, you're probably okay. The body will null everything until you've broken all their wings, and so don't be afraid of AFing and targeting the wings to break it down. You have 15 turns in this version to kill the boss, after which use your crystal and blast it to oblivion. It is weak to crystal, not that it really needs it. I mean, crystal can win on its own anyways. Again, I do have Shade Zone active, probably not the best, but you know, we're just here to win. So I do apologize for the non-elegant clears. I didn't feel like really playing it over and over again, and I think seeing some of my initial experimentations does give you guys hopefully some ideas as to what teams you want to bring for yourself. Again, I kind of just went with some almost like when I decide what team to bring, I kind of look at the vulnerabilities and what kind of requirements there are. Usually bring a zone setter, dual debuffer. I've talked about this in the past, of course. Something to keep your team alive, and of course some DPS. And of course, with the various elements required, you bring the elemental team that exploits those. Once you finish all 4, of course, as you go through, you get some chronostones and some small awards. But you do get a silver badge, which is worth like, I don't know, 20 stones or something like that, 20 or 30. Nothing major. So it's more to wet your feet in the difficulty of Battle Simulator and hopefully have more fun, bringing the fun back into AE as opposed to worrying about every new SA unit out there. Anyways, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.